Is Sarah's baby safe? Outer Banks Season 5 ending explained, warning, major spoilers. Yes, Sarah's baby is safe in the Outer Banks Season 5 finale. Sarah continues her pregnancy despite everything she and John B. go through during the final season. She eventually gives birth to a healthy baby boy, and the couple names him JJ in honor of their late friend. A one-year time jump then shows Sarah and John B. getting married with their son present. So, what actually happens to Sarah's baby in Outer Banks Season 5? The pregnancy becomes one of the biggest emotional storylines of the final season. Sarah revealed she was pregnant at the end of Season 4, just as she and the Pogues were heading into another dangerous adventure. The timing couldn't have been worse. Sarah and John B. were still young. They were constantly moving from one dangerous situation to another. And they were about to chase the Blue Crown while dealing with the aftermath of JJ's death. So naturally, one of the biggest questions going into Season 5 was whether Sarah and her baby would make it through the story. The answer is yes, and the finale gives Sarah one of the happiest endings in the entire series. Does Sarah keep the baby? Yes, Sarah ultimately decides to continue her pregnancy. There is some uncertainty early in Season 5 because she and John B. aren't exactly living a stable life. They don't have a normal home, they're still getting themselves into dangerous situations, and Sarah knows that becoming a mother will completely change her future. But she ultimately decides that she wants the baby. The pregnancy, therefore, isn't turned into a tragedy or used as a reason to separate Sarah and John B. Instead, it becomes part of their journey toward adulthood. Sarah is essentially forced to start thinking beyond the treasure hunt and the chaos surrounding the Pogues. For the first time, she's thinking about building a future. Is Sarah's baby ever in serious danger? Yes, Sarah and the baby face several dangerous situations throughout Season 5. That's what makes the pregnancy so stressful. The Pogues aren't suddenly living peaceful lives just because Sarah is pregnant. They're still being chased, they're still dealing with enemies, they're still searching for treasure. And Sarah has to survive all of that while carrying a child. At one point, she experiences severe dehydration, which makes her physical condition particularly concerning. But the pregnancy continues. Sarah doesn't lose the baby, and the final episodes ultimately confirm that she makes it safely through the pregnancy. Does Sarah give birth? Yes, Sarah eventually gives birth to a healthy baby boy. This happens before the final time jump. The birth is one of the biggest signs that Sarah and John B.'s story has finally moved beyond the endless cycle of danger they've experienced throughout the series. For years, their lives have revolved around finding treasure, escaping criminals, and surviving one crisis after another. Now they have something completely different to protect: their son. And the baby's name makes the moment even more emotional. Why do they name the baby JJ? Sarah and John B. name their son JJ. The name is a tribute to their best friend JJ Maybank, who was killed by his biological father, Chandler Groff, at the end of Season 4. JJ's death is the event that drives much of Season 5. The Pogues aren't simply trying to find another treasure, they're also determined to get revenge for their friend. So naming Sarah and John B.'s son JJ gives the character a lasting presence in the final chapter of the story. The new JJ isn't literally the old JJ returning. He's a completely different person. But his name ensures that the Pogues will always remember the friend they lost. Netflix had previously confirmed that JJ's death was intentional and that the 5th season would be built around the aftermath of his loss. Does the baby have anything to do with the Blue Crown? No. The Blue Crown becomes one of the major mysteries of Season 5, and its supposed connection to resurrection creates plenty of speculation about whether JJ himself could return. But Sarah's baby isn't some supernatural reincarnation of JJ. The name is simply a tribute. The emotional point is that while the original JJ is gone, his memory survives through the people who loved him. Sarah and John B.'s son becomes a symbol of that. The Pogues have lost someone important, but they're also starting a new generation. What happens to Sarah and John B.? The finale gives them the happy ending fans have been waiting for. After surviving the final confrontation with Chandler Groff and securing the Royal Merchant Gold, Sarah and John B. finally get the opportunity to build a stable life. The finale then jumps forward 1 year, and that's when we see Sarah and John B. getting married. Their son JJ is there for the ceremony. It's a huge full-circle moment because Sarah and John B. began the series as teenagers whose relationship was surrounded by danger, family conflict, and treasure hunting. Now they're married, they're parents, and they're surrounded by their friends. Entertainment Weekly confirms that the final scene is the wedding, with their baby boy JJ present. Is Sarah still with John B? Yes. Their relationship survives everything Season 5 throws at them. That includes the treasure hunt, the danger surrounding Groff, and the emotional aftermath of JJ's death. Sarah and John B ultimately remain together, and the wedding confirms that they're committed to building a life together. Their son is therefore not growing up in a broken family. Sarah and John B are together and raising him. That's the future the show ultimately gives them. What happens to Rafe? Rafe's ending adds an emotional twist to Sarah's happy ending. Although Rafe has spent much of the series pausing problems for Sarah, their relationship becomes more complicated by the finale. Rafe eventually has to leave the Outer Banks. Before leaving, he says goodbye to Sarah, and he tells her that he probably won't be able to come back, meaning he won't get the chance to meet her baby. That's an especially emotional moment because Sarah has spent much of her life wanting some kind of normal relationship with her brother. Instead, Rafe has to disappear from her life again. People reports that Rafe tells Sarah he won't be able to see her baby before leaving Kildare. So, although Sarah's baby is safe, not everyone Sarah loves gets to be part of the child's life. Why is Sarah's ending so important? Sarah's pregnancy represents something the character has rarely had, a future. Think about where Sarah started. She grew up surrounded by wealth, but her family life was deeply dysfunctional. Her relationship with Ward was complicated. Her relationship with Rafe was often destructive. She eventually chose John B. and the Pogues. But even then, her life remained chaotic. There was always another treasure, another villain, another betrayal, another escape. Her pregnancy changes that. Suddenly, Sarah has someone depending on her. She has to think beyond the next adventure. And by the finale, she has created the family she always wanted. What happens to Sarah 1 year later? The 1-year time jump shows that Sarah and John B have successfully transitioned into their new lives. They're no longer simply teenagers running around the world looking for treasure. They're married adults raising their son. The wedding is deliberately peaceful. After 5 seasons of storms, shootings, betrayals, and treasure hunts, the show finally gives its main characters a moment where they're allowed to celebrate. And Sarah's baby is right there with them. That's confirmation that the child survived everything. Is Sarah's baby the final legacy of the Pogues? In a way, yes. The ending introduces the idea of a next generation. The original Pogues have grown up. Some have relationships, some have careers, and Sarah and John B have a child. Naming him JJ connects the future to the past. The original Pogues aren't forgotten. Their adventures and losses become part of the history that their children will inherit. That's why the name matters so much. The show isn't saying JJ has returned, it's saying JJ's memory continues. Final answer. So, is Sarah's baby safe in Outer Banks Season 5? Yes, completely. Sarah chooses to keep the baby despite the uncertainty surrounding her pregnancy. She survives the dangers of the final season, including the treasure hunt, the threats from Groff, and the physical difficulties of pregnancy. Most importantly, she successfully gives birth to a healthy baby boy. Sarah and John B named their son JJ, honoring their late friend JJ Maybank. That name is especially meaningful because JJ's death is what drives much of Season 5. The Pogues spend the season trying to avenge him, and by the end, Sarah and John B make sure his name continues with their son. The finale then jumps forward 1 year. Sarah and John B are married. Their baby JJ is present at the wedding, and the Pogues are finally able to enjoy a peaceful moment together after everything they've survived. So there is no heartbreaking twist involving Sarah's pregnancy. She doesn't miscarry.
she doesn't give the baby away, and the baby isn't killed. Instead, Sarah gets the happy ending that seemed almost impossible when the series began. She becomes a mother, John B. becomes a father, and the two of them finally build a family of their own. There's also an emotional connection to Rafe, who leaves the Outer Banks and admits that he probably won't get to meet Sarah's baby. But overall, Sarah's story ends on a hopeful note. After years of losing people and constantly fighting to survive, she finally has something that can't be taken away so easily: a husband, a son, and a future. And by naming their baby JJ, Sarah and John B. make sure that even though their best friend is gone, he will always remain part of the Pogue family.